Hello and welcome to a special 4th of July Independence Day Talking Tropes extravaganza.
Today
Woo!
we're invading your Sunday
Your
and
podcatcher.
celebrating American pride because when you invade Earth, you're really just invading America. And
Yep.
that's our thesis statement for analyzing these two classic 1990s invasion
Invasion
narratives.
films. Yes. We've got Independence Day, the classic, and the not so classic Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks. Tim
Oh
Burton
boy.
and Roland Emmerich in the same podcast. What is this?
It's more likely than you might think.
So yeah, these movies often get mentioned in the same breath because they came out so close to each other and had such similar narratives and influences. They both were heavily influenced by these 1950s B movie invasion stories, very post-war Cold War era
Yeah.
um, narratives of advanced alien beings coming and just destroying American landmarks for fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
For
fun
fun
and
and
profit.
profit. um, Great minds, David. Yeah. So these movies are simultaneously so similar and so different.
Right. I think sometimes there are certain differences that people will point out that I don't think actually hold up. Like some
Mm.
people will say like, "Oh, I really prefer Mars Attacks because Mars Attacks is like a love letter to those 1950s, disaster movies and invasion movies, unlike Independence Day, which is totally uncritical of those, films and just sort of like puts it just sort of repeats things without paying proper homage. And I think that's not true. Like Independence Day, you got that great shot where they're watching TV and there's an old sci-fi movie on. I believe it's The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Uh-huh.
And like that's a classic. It's paying homage to the right things,
Yeah.
and it's got the flying saucers and all
Absolutely.
the same things. I think it definitely holds up. Independence Day, that is, as a pastiche of a
Sure.
dead genre. Well,
Yeah.
back then it was sort of dead.
I think it's still kind of dead.
No, I think invasion stories now are like the norm. It's like,
Well, invasion stories, yes, but sort of that 50s B genre version of it, I
okay,
would say
yeah,
not as much.
you've got a point. Yeah, I think a lot of the movies now, they're sort of playing off of the tropes of the revival that started
Yes.
with Independence Day and Mars Attacks, and they're
Right.
not really going back as far in terms of their homage. I think that was true. I actually watched Independence Day Resurgence, the sequel for this one, which was also directed by Roland Emmerich, but it just felt so drained of wonder. Just any
Right.
sense of nostalgia is just like
Gone.
boiled out of it and left with just the bottom of the pot of just awful stew. I hate it. I hated it.
It's too gritty and
Right. It's like oops, all cliches. Like all of the dialogue between any two characters consists of lines that you've heard in other movies.
Mhm. I think it's interesting that you say, people talk about preferring Mars Attacks because feeling like it pays homage to these things and is maybe critical of them. Whereas, like, I think it's both critical and uncritical in that way that only Tim Burton can, like, really achieve,
Right. It's
where,
not really saying anything of
yeah.
substance. It's pointing to a facade and saying, "Look, a facade."
And here's some good people, I yes, and you're like, but what makes them good is like, no, they're just good because they see it's a facade, and it's like,
Right.
okay, but what are they doing?
Right. Well, I was looking up some of the sort of critical responses to these films over the years, And I think that like a common trend for like Tim Burton in this era of his career is that he's just sort of pointing to phonies, but
Mm-hmm.
he's also pointing to like elites
Yeah.
in this sort of nebulous way.
Yeah.
um I read an article or a chapter of a book called The Philosophy of Tim Burton, written um, by a scholar by the name of Paul Cantor,
Okay.
and he is approaching it from sort of like, it's really good that this is like a libertarian criticism of government, and sort
Okay.
of taking it as sort of a reversal of these 50s B movies, which all ultimately reify the state as the authority to deal with invading powers,
Right.
and the state as the authority to deal with the family and to
Mm-hmm.
deal with like any problems in America. And so from like an extremely conservative libertarian perspective, it's like, I want small government, so let's blow up Congress.
Right. We should let the kid who works at the donut shop and likes yodeling and his grandma save everybody.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna spoil a lot of things in these films. So if you haven't checked them out,
As
I can
always.
recommend them both to watch, but I didn't like Mars Attacks.
No.
I just feel like it's interesting to talk
Mars
about.
Attacks is the kind of movie that you watch inebriated in some form.
It's,
And
yeah, I think it'd be good for that.
you'll have a fun time with it that way. That would be
Right.
my
Well, it's
suggestion.
one of two films that I know of that are based on just trading cards. The other one being the Garbage Pail Kids movie, which is not a good comparison. It's not a good family to be in.
I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, no, no. Yu-Gi-Oh was a TV show based on a manga, which had a trading card game tie-in. That's slightly different.
Oh, okay, okay,
This is
okay.
literally adapted from something that had no other media representations except for, it was a series of trading cards released by Topps of Martians attacking.
Okay. Yep. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
apparently, Burton really wanted to do these Martians as stop motion, but it was too expensive, so they did CGI, and they
Yeah.
just end up kind of looking like Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah.
Like they don't represent any real like compelling threat or
No.
interesting like design or character. They're just
They're
sort of
just
like Looney
Burton.
Tunes.
It's like Burton's weird design aesthetic,
Right. But I
but
mean, he
like
didn't even come up
worse.
with like the skull with the brain that, like, that was from the trading cards.
Right,
He
but
just came up with that they
it
bounce around and make silly noises and go ack 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 ack.
ah, ah. It's okay. Here's what I'll say about the alien language in Mars Attack. Um, it it's like so in contrast to, the movies we have now, which are just all about linguistics and like
Right, like a
just
rival, you're
right,
saying.
right. Like you take Mars Attacks versus Arrival, and it's just
Well,
like
yeah,
different
like
galaxies.
the joke is obviously like they create like a universal translating device that perfectly translates everything they say, but they everything that they say is a total lie.
Right.
And the things that are being translated are just them going ack ack ack, and it comes out as like, we come in peace, don't be
Yeah.
afraid, we want to be friends, but they're just running around zapping people with lasers and
Yeah.
knocking over the Easter Island heads with a bowling ball,
They're
like,
literally just like chaos demons, like
right,
you were
which
saying, Looney Tunes. Yeah.
they're Looney Tunes, but like that's supposed to be like the fun of it, right? Like when you hear Tim Burton talk about this, it's like you kind of empathize with them because they're just smashing through this phoniness by just killing everyone.
I
uh
don't have a lot of
by
empathy for that
by
personally.
murdering people and smashing things.
The
They like to
original
smash.
Jokers. They're the original Jokers, David.
Right, they're jokerfied, and they will take like a fake TV host with her fake little chihuahua tiny dog that fits in a purse and swap their heads. Ha ha.
And the fake
Take that,
intellectual
society.
who's gonna cuck her husband who's, a weak and ineffectual newscaster, but he
Played by Michael
dies.
J. Fox.
The casting in this movie is insane. Like
Right. Well, it's Burton casting, like he
it's
does this.
so wild.
Right.
Um
There's inexplicably two Jack Nicholsons, and I read about like why are there two Jack Nicholsons? Like, were there going to be more Jack Nicholsons, and then they forgot to put them in? And it's just like, Burton knew that he needed Jack Nicholson to play the president because he's the only actor he's worked with who has like any gravitas at all.
uh-huh.
And then Jack Nicholson was like, I could play like all the parts. And then Tim Burton was like, let's start with two. And they just gave him this, sleazy real estate developer in Vegas character.
Which was awful. The worst character in the whole movie. Did not need to be there at all.
Right.
Just
I thought
truly
I
the
thought he
worst.
did pretty well as the president. I thought he was
He
kind
did
of
fine as the
believable.
president. He was I enjoyed him as the president because of how just like clearly over the top he
Right.
was with
But
it.
also
Same
like
with Glenn
soulless.
Close.
Like he's like
Yes.
an empty shell of a president.
Yeah.
Just a total like obviously everyone's an empty shell in this movie because they're all like representing the fact that we're empty shells.
Right.
So it's like, oh, so it's okay that they're all just stereotypes and not real because that's what I'm making
Cause
fun of.
cause it's a farce, man.
Right. I'm making fun of America, But what does it have to say about America specifically? What did you think its notes about what America is and should be are?
All of all of the lanky weird dudes who work in donut shops should get to marry the president's hot alternative daughter. That's what I got from it.
I
And their
guess that's
grandmas are
that's one
cool.
interpretation, but it doesn't really speak to America
No.
as a whole. But I think they're clearly like trying to say something about America as a whole. And so I think the only thing you can take away from it is like, okay,
The people at the
politicians are
bottom.
sleazy, they
Yeah.
shouldn't be in charge, they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of any particular decision that they would make, because there's obviously like in every invasion narrative in the beginning, the president argues with the secretary of defense or the 4-star general who's like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to blow these suckers up, launch the nukes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be representative of the struggles of the Cold War, where we were always like, a minute away from destruction, but cooler heads prevailed.
Right.
And so the president is like, no, we should try and reason with them. We should try diplomacy, because that's supposedly what like Reagan would have said, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or not Reagan, whoever
No,
in the
it's pretty
50s.
Reagan.
But I'm just saying, like, that was the narrative, even going back like earlier in the Cold War, is
Right.
whenever for like Earth versus the flying saucers.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a conversation where the president wants to nuke the threat,
Right.
or maybe one of his generals does, but
Mm-hmm.
they cool off. So you're like, okay, they're cooling off. They're going to try and communicate with them, but then they're going to be evil. So the lesson is, we should, shoot first, ask questions later. We should be overly cautious with foreign threats.
Mm-hmm.
But then they launch the nukes and they do nothing, which is something that also happens in Independence Day.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so what are you saying about the decision-making process, that he's too concerned with publicity, that he's not concerned enough with public safety, that no, it's none of that. It's that he's bad because he's dumb and fake and not real and doesn't represent the people.
No.
Like Donut Boy.
And unlike his
like
dead brother, Jack Black.
Oh man, yeah. So like, yeah, there's also fakeness, I guess, in certain like poor people that he also looks at.
Yeah.
It was not strictly like elites that he's satirizing, because he's also like, oh, the people who say they're gonna like go out and be war heroes like Jack Black, they're gonna surrender the first time they see a threat, and so they're fake too.
Or, they're idiots for going and dying in war. Like, they should use their brains and not a gun, because like his parents stay to defend the trailer, and he's like,
but
I'm
the people
going to
who
get
use
grandma.
their brains are also fake and dumb, because
no. It's the academic intellectuals, the
but
ivory
he's
tower
using his
elites.
brain. No, he's
No,
suggesting
he's not.
something.
he's using his brain, but again, only like the smallest like veneer. He's like, oh, well, they must be an advanced civilization. And so an advanced civilization by definition can't be violent and barbaric.
Right.
And, you know,
Well, this is
like,
what I think they're actually saying about America and about the world is
yeah.
that, what it is it's sort of a reaction to in the 1950s, the Cold War era fear of the other being the Soviet Union, was this like hyper advanced collectivist, but like totally devoid of individuality, like invading force. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why we typically read these like saucer men as being like, Sputnik type, Russian spacemen.
Uh-huh.
um but in a post Cold War setting, which is what these are, this is the beginning of post Cold War thing. We've now reached a point where Burton is saying, okay, the foreign invading threat, the scary collectivist thing doesn't exist because all of human progress is headed towards chaos, and stupidity and cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
And that being more advanced and progressing means you're in fact heading closer to an imperialist, monster who just likes killing things. And so
Mm.
the only way to stop that is to stop progressing entirely and just
Mm.
go back to what he imagines a primitive past to be, which is living in teepees, which is what the donut boy says at the end, is that instead of
Yeah.
living in houses, we should live in teepees because sometimes teepees are better.
Yeah.
Also, I
Ugh.
believe they're called wigwams. So, whatever.
Yeah. Sorry, my phone keeps buzzing. I don't want it to get caught in my recording.
But do you feel like that is an interpretation of what they're going for? Like, what do you
Yeah.
think they're going for with that whole like they're an advanced species, so they must be peaceful. They're an advanced species, so they must know what we're
Oh,
going to do before we do it.
yeah. I mean, again, I agree that, it's pointing to the um if not the falseness and fakeness of modern life, then sort of the at least the hypocrisy of it,
Mm-hmm.
that we think we are so much better
Than
and
our
so much
primitive
more
ancestors.
right. Or, especially at the time, like talking about the global south or third world countries,
Right.
like these places that we still view as um violent and chaotic and war torn while we live in, peace and prosperity. And, bringing that chaos to the country via these invasion stories, sort of strips away some of that hypocrisy of, oh, you think you're so much better, you think you could survive this or not. Why don't you take a minute and try? It's not even that. I think he's saying like we need to return to like an entirely primitive past. I think he's just saying like, golly gee, isn't modern life so complicated? Wouldn't it be
Stifling,
better?
full
Yeah,
of
it's
idiots,
full of so
full
many
of cruelty.
rules and cruelty. Can't we just be like weird experimental goofballs who like get to do our own things? Like,
Well,
can't
here's
it
the
just
thing.
be
I think it is
simple?
directly about Native Americans because, in addition to the TP comment, the song that defeats, the aliens. There's an old country song that they play that's like yodeling that
Yeah.
makes their heads explode. That song is titled Indian Love Call, and it's
Mm.
a song by a
But I
country
think
artist named Slim Whitman.
like so this is my thing with Burton at this point.
Uh,
So much of his work is so rooted in his own nostalgia for his childhood, which was in a time where people played cowboys and Indians, and when things felt simple and there felt like there was a good guy and a bad guy, the Cold War, like it felt like, you knew who was he felt like an outsider because his interests were different than the other kids and he wasn't a jock. So, you know, like I think so much of his movies are just that lens applied to whatever else he's talking about, you know.
Right.
And I think that's the simplicity that he's looking for. And I think in this case it's being filtered through this sort of like Indian, Native American, weird primitivist fetishization sort of lens that,
Right.
again, I think is coming not from like actual any like interest or respect in like native cultures, or, you know, worry about uh like global warming, other than like isn't it fucked up people did this, and more so just his own
Right.
nostalgia.
Well, there was one other character who I thought was like trying to make some kind of commentary and may have been like a lens for Burton, who's the
Mm-hmm.
character who's like welcoming these peaceful Martians in the beginning, and then when she finds out that they're violent and murderous, is like, maybe we deserve this. You know, like she was saying,
Mm.
we need someone benevolent to come save us from ourselves. And then once they come and try and kill them, they're like, well, at least they're like saving the planet because we ruined it. So there is this kind of like anxiety about like America is ruining a perfect world. You
Yeah.
know, we're spoiling it.
Which is also true in Independence Day with Jeff Goldblum's character. You know, he's the recycle guy and is very on about that, and then he has a breakdown at one point, you know, where he's like, I'm gonna trash the place and then maybe they won't want it anymore.
Right.
Very silly, but
Yeah, I guess it's sort of saying like, who, you know, who gets to have ownership of the earth? If we can't do what
mm-hmm,
we want with it, who can? I don't
mm-hmm.
know. It's a very strange sort of subplot, but I think it's more of a character related thing for him,
Yeah.
where,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
Emmerich is just like creating all these tiny character arcs in Independence Day, and
Mm-hmm.
his arc is that he's he's lazy, he's a genius, Jeff Goldblum, but he wants to save the world, and so he does that in all these little insignificant ways, but he's given an opportunity to actually save the world, and now he
In a
doesn't care
big way.
about you know, things like smoking, killing anymore. He's lost his, you know, whatever the stereotype of like the liberal Jew is. Like he's
The
lost that.
nebbishness.
He's lost his nebbishness. He's lost his like nitpickiness. And like I read this in the New Yorker that you're not supposed to litter or smoke cigars. You know, his Bloombergness
Mm-hmm.
almost. And now he's escaped that because he saved the world by flying
Right.
in a alien spaceship with a military man, and he's worked with the
Yeah.
president. You
Oh
know,
yeah. He
so that's what
he
it is.
punched the president.
Right. You punched the president. Judd Hirsch, what a
A
guy.
gift. What a gift.
He's playing it so heavy, Jew.
It's so fun though. I love it.
Right. Just
um
like Harvey Firestein
but
playing it
oh
so heavily, Harvey Firestein,
yeah, it was
before
a
getting
lot.
smushed by a car exploding.
God, just the way some of these side characters get treated. And I'm going to say in both of these movies, but it feels especially jarring in Independence Day, where, you know, it takes itself a little bit more seriously and tries to make us
Right.
kind of like feel a little bit more empathetically for these people. Whereas, you know, Burton's is a lot more farcical and whimsical.
Right. Yeah. People who die and get their fingers bit off. You know, Martin Short is like a sex pervert who's the chief of staff, and he gets his
Right.
finger bit off by a lady alien,
Uh,
sexy lady alien who's actually still a skull brainhead.
yeah.
Uh, and I think Glenn Close as the president's wife gets killed in like an
Yeah.
especially brutal way.
She just gets a chandelier dropped on her.
Right, but it's her favorite chandelier. It's like an ironic
All
death for
right. She's
her.
like, "Oh, not the Roosevelt chandelier."
Chandelier. um and then like some of the other side characters, I guess, you know, as far as like the people that the movie respects are like, you know, this heavyweight fighter who performs in Vegas is
Mm-hmm.
like a respectable person,
Yeah.
but like this other gambler played by Danny DeVito, he's bad
Yeah.
and deserves to die and is bad. um yeah, I don't know, are there any
So
other
God,
characters in
Danny
Mars Attacks that
DeVito
are worth talking
is
about?
is a fucking joy to watch. I did want to mention that the president's daughter is played by Natalie Portman,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is just funny. Just,
Do you know
just
who the
funny to
president's
me.
daughter is played by in Independence Day?
I should probably.
It's
Who is it?
Mae Whitman, otherwise known as Katara
No
from
way.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. So go check out our Avatar: The Last Korra recap series if you want to hear us talk more about that.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about the president's wife dying in Independence Day?
Yeah, she just like she's bleeding internally. It's
I can't do
sad.
anything.
And then he tells his kid like, "Oh yeah, she's taking a nap."
And then she just dies off screen, I guess, without her
No, she
daughter
died right
present.
then. I think it's supposed to be the
But
implication.
like how I'm sorry, you don't call your kid back in? Like
I
I'm
guess not. You just tell her she's sleeping.
like
Yeah.
that's fucked up.
Don't worry
I don't
about it. We're
know.
gonna beat those aliens.
Yeah. It's just weird. And then this kid has like no reactions to this later in the movie, except that she's like, "Yay, daddy, you blew up the aliens." And I love that also, knowing that his wife is dead, the president is just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fly this mission where I might die because
Right.
I've
Well,
gotta
the thing
and leave
is,
my child orphaned."
Hannah, narratively, if you have three female characters in a scene just whose only role is to sit and wait for the male characters to come back, then it becomes a little weird. So you gotta kill one of them
Oh,
off
so
so
you
that
have to
no one is
kill
waiting
one of
for her
them.
to come back, for him to come back.
No, because
Because
then it would be
literally,
four female characters, David. Because there
wait,
were
for
three. Because
oh,
his
because of the
daughter.
kid.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, like, there's the scene where like they're talking about whether Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum are coming back,
Yeah.
and both of their like wives are just standing right next to each other, being like, "Are they coming back?" And they're like, "I don't know. Maybe they're not." And they're both like, "Oh my god!" And so if there was a third person there, that
I
would just be
bet
too much.
there's plenty of movies where like that's the case. And could you imagine the mom holding the president's daughter and we're just like, oh no, the president. Is he
Right. Well, it's supposed to be a
alive?
consequence for him, telling her to get out of the city and her refusing, there
But
has to be
like,
consequences or something.
ugh, fuck that.
But the real consequences are just that all the big monuments are blown up. And so
Yeah.
in this one it's like everything. It's like all of LA is blown up,
Yeah.
all of DC is blown up, and what was the third place that gets blown
New
up?
York.
New York, right.
Can't forget New York.
No. But
The New
yeah,
York scenes
it's
are definitely hard to watch post
right.
9/11.
Right. I mean that's what people always talk about is that like after 9/11 there were new invasion stories, like there was the Steven Spielberg World War of the Worlds, and
Yeah.
Lindsay Ellis has a great video comparing Independence Day to that, sort of
Yeah.
saying this is pre and post. We're not
Yeah.
doing that, but we are
No.
doing something very derivative of that, which is doing two 90s invasion
Whoa. I
movies.
mean, David, if our work is nothing else, it is very derivative of Lindsay
Derivative.
Ellis. I
Right.
mean, a
And less
founding influence.
structured or scripted and
Like I
generally
said,
of lower quality.
very derivative.
um, but yeah, like, is it fun to blow up the White House? Is it fun to blow
I think
up
it's still fun to blow up the White
monuments?
House. I don't know about other monuments. I think it's definitely still fun to blow up the White House because the White
Right.
House is still a functioning seat of power. I think, especially these days, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, like
It can be
you
fun.
you kind of want to blow up the White House,
Right.
just like a little bit. Like maybe you want someone to get hurt in it or not, but you do just kind of want to blow up the White House.
Right. And that was sort of like the early critical response to Independence Day was like, people are just taking joy in the blatant destruction and like the
Mm,
explosions and whatnot. It's pure spectacle,
mm.
and it's joy at seeing things fall down.
I mean,
Uh
it's generally a nice ensemble piece. It felt
Right.
more
That's the
coherent.
second response. That's the
Right.
next thing that they would say is like, no, 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 no. It's about catharsis. It's about coming together as people and crossing borders. But then you think crossing borders. Wait a minute. The only things that we see are America. And the
Yeah.
title of the movie is Independence Day. So the next critical
And
response is this is Hollywood just blurring all lines between cultures so that everything is America. And
yes.
all of the stereotypes within it are just like blatant stereotypes of characters. Like this is the black soldier, this is the
Yeah.
Jewish scientist
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think everyone is definitely very stereotypical. You know, like it's very simple, but it has to be with this many moving parts, you know, like
Yeah.
the characters don't have room to be more than kind of this basic outlined sketch stereotype trope, you know.
Right.
Um it just is what it is. And I think it works fine in some cases, and I think in other cases it makes it a little bit weaker. And some characters, I think they could have just skipped altogether, and it would have been a fine movie. I don't know
Right.
why
Yeah.
you're here, Harvey Firestein. I don't know why you're here, like
He's gotta
stripper
call his
friend.
mother. I gotta
Like,
call my mother and my doctor and not my lawyer.
like stripper friend who goes to greet the aliens. Like, sure, I guess. We didn't need you specifically. We got the
Right. Well,
gist.
the fact that Will Smith is marrying a stripper, and we mentioned this a while back, is one of the reasons that the military would not fund this particular script or provide them with resources, props,
Oh,
and such.
really?
You remember we were talking about it, and the other thing was that it was Area 51 is featured so heavily, and they
Right,
wanted to correct the false association between aliens and Area 51,
right.
unless it's not false. But they definitely wanted to correct the script, and
Yeah.
Roland Emmerich did not let them, and so they didn't have funding for that. Now, ironically, for Resurgence years later, the military would produce this sort of like astroturfy go army campaign around the release of the movie, realizing, I guess, that they missed out on the success of the original. But like leaked documents revealed that there was like $2 million spent on this ad campaign
Oh my
that
gosh.
was centered around people talking about Independence Day Resurgence, and so it was not very effective because no one talked about that movie.
Yeah, that's
But
so
I thought
weird.
that was interesting, because the Resurgence movie does, like, in a way that the original movie does not, is so centered on America being the central hub, but integrating like China and like all these other countries into its defensive protocols. Like there's like
Right,
a
because I
specifically
think
Chinese pilot who like does more than a lot of the American pilots
uh-huh.
do. And then
Yeah,
ultimately it's about how like we all have to come together with America at the center in order to defeat any possible alien threats. And we have to always be vigilant. Even if
right.
we've like harvested massive weapons from the last invasion to defeat the future invasion, that's not being prepared enough. We have to
Right.
build even more giant weapons and have even more safeguards, and we can
Yeah.
never rest because the threat is always out there. Anyway,
Constant vigilance.
yeah, that's what Resurgence is about. Because it's like 20 years later, and they're like, "We've prepared for the next invasion," and they're like, "Nope, didn't prepare enough."
That, yeah. Should have prepared more, you
Yeah.
dinguses.
Yep.
Um yeah, but this one, it's definitely yeah, it's like it's definitely like pro-military, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, the American military is at the center of everything that happens in the movie, good or
yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
But that is good propaganda. I mean, even if that wasn't necessarily what Emmerich was going for, but it definitely brings to mind the nostalgia of like early war movies, and that's something that a political theorist Michael Rogan writes about in regards to Independence Day. That it's
Mm,
sort of recalling this like early World War II version of military history where there's a common enemy to fight, we're all united against it, there's no moral gray areas, and you're facing a threat of extermination.
Right.
It's kill or be killed.
Yeah.
So that's like very nostalgic in a way that
Mm-hmm.
most of the 50s invasion narratives really were not.
Mm-hmm.
They were very surreal and kind of, cosmically horrifying, like, like a Lovecraft story or something.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not that. This is fun apocalypse that we get to beat up the space Nazis.
Right. Yeah. Very, very much space Nazis, but like not even that complicated,
Right.
Like they don't even really have an ideology other than, well, what if we killed you all?
Right.
Like,
Well, they're supposed to be like capitalists. They're described as like locusts,
mm,
that they harvest all
yes,
the resources in a place and then move on to the next one.
which is just American imperialism, but it's fine.
Right. But it's impacting us, which is exactly the point of like War of the Worlds, the original H.G. Wells novel that all
Mm-hmm.
of these stories are based on.
Mm-hmm.
It's about imperialism. It's about what if Great Britain, this massive, imperial machine, was invaded by a superior being from beyond the stars. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, that could never happen. That's ridiculous. But of course it could, like people get invaded all the time.
Right.
Yeah,
Mostly by you doesn't mean
mostly by
it
you.
can't happen to you, but
Right.
also maybe it shouldn't happen at all.
Right. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's
Maybe
bad
it's
that
bad.
people are imperial monsters.
Who knows? Who can say, David? I
Right. But they don't really
mean,
make that point at Independence Day,
no.
really. There's
But
not really a
aside
sense
from
that
that, no.
like America is going to stop like being in the Gulf War, for example. I mean,
No.
the president is a Gulf War hero.
Yeah.
He's a pilot from this post Cold War forever war in the Middle East that we are
Right.
still currently in.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously it's saying something about that, but I couldn't really tell you what.
Right. Yeah, it's well, it's interesting because, the whole sort of arc for this president is that he's, indecisive or is apparently weak and ineffectual because he's so young and is in office
Right.
and has to compromise all the time. But then, when a real crisis comes, he's able to step up,
Right.
like he
So
can
again,
be,
it's this conflict between the global narrative of the story, the themes, and
yeah.
the specific narratives. Like we were saying with Goldblum, it's the same thing
Mhm.
with Pullman.
Yeah.
You're trapped in this. Well, he's got to learn to fight again, learn to be a fighter again. So I
Right.
guess his Gulf War heroing is his true self, and his negotiating and thinking of others is his fake political self, I guess.
Right, like it's a weird sort of
But there's no reflection on being in the Gulf War in the first place and
right.
blowing up people in the same way that these guys are blowing up all of your favorite landmarks, and the Statue of Liberty lies in ruins, just like it would in future Roland Emmerich movies like The Day After Tomorrow and
Oh,
2012
love
and
The Day After Tomorrow though. What a classic. We should talk about that one sometime.
right. Yeah, or just even more Roland Emmerich movies. But of course,
Yeah.
Lindsay Ellis has got that one covered for sure. So check out her video on just endless Roland Emmerich disaster movies, if it's still anywhere, which it might not be.
It probably is. Yeah, these movies are such like 90s time capsules
Right,
in their
but they're
way.
capturing two very distinct but very simultaneous cultural moments with America, and the
Yeah.
idea of patriotism, and the idea of the American military and the
Mhm.
American government.
Mhm.
On the one hand, Mars Attacks, it's Gen X was always like America sucks, reality bites with
Right.
Winona Ryder and Ben Stiller and you know
Daria and
Daria, yes, exactly. So, just this like screw everything, everything's fake, everything sucks. That's Mars Attacks.
uh-huh.
And then Independence Day is the opposite, which is like we did it. We won the Cold War.
Right.
Thank God for America.
And one
America,
day the whole world will celebrate our
right. We need to
Independence Day.
stabilize all these regions.
Right. With
But
our
then if somebody were to
military
attack
strength.
us, they're going to get absolutely punted because we're America. We have the smartest people. We have the most Jews. We have the
We do.
we we have cool military guys who marry strippers and
Yeah.
say quippy one-liners. We're the cool people, not Soviet Russia. They suck.
Yeah.
We're gonna give them like one line in the movie, and then they're gonna shut up and not do anything.
I mean, that's pretty similar to how America's portrayed. Or not America. It's pretty similar to how other countries are portrayed in Mars Attacks as well. Like, there's one moment
They're just
where,
extraneous.
right, like the president of France calls the Jack Nicholson, and he's like, "Oh, we just signed an accord with aliens," and he's like, "No, no, get out of there! It's a
And then they
trap!"
just kill them
And
all.
then they
Yeah.
just kill everybody.
Right. And then, of course, both of the films feature like a very clear weakness to these things where they can be just sort of killed all at once with like,
Right.
if you just know the secret to killing them. So whether it's Slim Whitman's song about Native American love and yodeling, or whether it's a computer virus that can be uploaded by something as simple as a Mac computer.
Right.
It's easy to kill these things, which I think also kind of goes back to H.G. Wells
Yeah.
and like the virus that kills everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
I do have to say though, like, that was the funniest moment in Independence Day for me when Jeff Goldblum was like, "A cold? A computer virus," and no one else had thought of a computer virus, which was like
on
were
on the
things in the
one
90s.
hand, I agree with you, but on the other, it doesn't make any sense that you could just upload a computer virus to their spaceship. It doesn't make any sense at all
No, it
that would be
doesn't.
possible.
It doesn't
That they
really
would just
make
have like an open
any
signal, like
sense.
just intaking like emails from Earth. Like, just don't do that. What are the Earthlings going to send you that's going to be
Right.
worth reading? It's all just filter it all, put it all in spam. Don't click on any strange links from Jeff Goldblum.
Right.
There was one other reading that I thought was interesting when I was like looking through critical responses to Independence Day. This is written by a guy named Robert Pirro, who was saying that maybe it has more to do with Roland Emmerich's West German upbringing than meets the eye. He said, he grew up predominantly watching West German TV, which was a lot of, American horror movies and B movie science fiction and disaster movies, but it was also a lot of propaganda about how communism kills and how the Soviets treated the Germans very badly during the end of World War II, and all this kind of sort of Nazi apologia that went with the capitalist side of West Germany during that time.
Right.
And so maybe in some way this kind of like fear of reunification in the post-Cold War era is sort of being expressed through this fear of the other in Independence Day. So I thought that was an interesting reading. And I encourage people to read it more in depth because I'm only sort of summarizing it in the broadest terms.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's definitely a take I hadn't considered prior to this, but I can sort of see the groundwork.
I just like to think of both of these films as being like distinctly post-Cold War, because they both came out like 1996, and it's like right when they're ending, but before 2001 hits, and then everything becomes about 9/11 and about American pride and rock flag and eagle. But like before then, there was this brief period of simultaneous anxiety about the future and about progress narratives because we had defeated communism, but what do we do now? We have no purpose. We have no cause.
Our purpose is to consume.
There's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of like, oh, we did it. There's no more threats. we've solved all threats for all time, and
Yeah.
yet we're still at war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
This is weird. So
Yeah.
I think that's what these two movies are about, and that's maybe we're experiencing a new version of that right now in the post-COVID, a sort of calm but also an anxiety.
Certainly, I think an anxiety. I mean, I would say our fight against COVID is very similar to the American fight against terror in that, you
There's
know,
no real enemy to defeat.
right. It like
You just have to survive.
there is, but there
So it's the 4th of July. You're going to be looking at fireworks, maybe. You're
maybe
maybe going to be meeting
celebrating.
up with people, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're still hiding in your bunker. And I would say don't hide in your bunker from COVID because it's a hoax. Hide from the
Oh
aliens who
my
are absolutely
God.
real.
Oh my God. This is where we reveal that like the QAnon has affected us.
That
And
they've melted our brains.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're now all Marjorie Taylor Greene supporters.
Look, I'm just saying I didn't get sick ever in my life.
I'm
And
actually currently suffering from the first cold I've had in a year and a half, and I was so
right. So what does that
scared.
tell you about the COVID scare?
But I was
Total
so
hoax.
scared it was COVID. I went and got tested like immediately.
Right.
Ugh, but it's not, so it's fine. So
Oh
everyone
man.
just go and get regular sick at your 4th of July barbecues. No one get COVID. And we'll see you on Thursday for a regularly scheduled mini
A
about
mini episode because we can't be doing
ooh,
2 full episodes in a week. That's just
it's a
impossible.
lot.
But we want to
It's a
give you a
lot.
little something on Thursday. So be on the lookout. All right. I'll see you guys later. Happy 4th.
Bye-bye.
Fuck imperialism. Goodbye.
Bye.